Mhm. Morning, learning at the Schutz for Shlema Filan Chaya Baserach. We're on Daf Samach Tes Amid Aleph by the two dots, about 18 lines down, 20 lines down. Malik b'smoila b'layla. The Mishnah had said, if you do a malika that's a pasul malika because he did it with his left hand or he did it at night, we said that's not that kind of malika will not make the animal tameh, will not make it an avela that it's metama bebeis abliya. Tan Rabban, yachal tehei malika she lifnim metam begadim bebeis abliya. This is talking about malika psula. It's not talking about a malika kshera. Clearly, if you do proper malika, it's certainly not going to become an avela. You don't say that everything that's done in the mikdash becomes an avela. The malika psula. So I might think it's metam begadim basically. A tamad loy min avela. Torah says nevela, and this is not an avela. What do you mean? Well, it's not an avela. It had a shchita. Didn't have a shchita. It had a malika, and the malika was an invalid malika in the sense that it wasn't kosher for kachim. So maybe it is an avela. So we discard that possibility. Right? The pasuk says, "B'chol nefesh toichol nevela utreifa be'ezer bager," he becomes tummy. So what does the Torah have to say? Nevelu treifa. What does a treifa have to think? Ma treifa shem materes sa'iser. It's coming to tell you, just like a treifa, an animal becoming treifa certainly is not mater anything. Avkol she'em materes sa'iser. So too, anything that is not mater the iser. So what is that referring to? Yatsa malika she lifnim, a malika psula, a malika, for example, of done with the left hand or done by night, which is not going to be mater this kachim. Hayel v'hi muteres as a iser. Since it's being mater the iser of achila, that it's not going to be an avela. It's ein metam begadim beis abliya. It's not going to become an avela to be metam.
What do you mean by materis the achila?
My question.
Is that right? I was just thinking as I was saying it. I don't think it doesn't mean that in this case it's mater. But a malika, when it's kosher, is mater. A treifa is never mater. A treifa is precluded. Just fact something becomes treifa never makes things any better. But malika, which is something which under the proper circumstances is mater. If it's done properly, it's mater.
Be done instead of a shchita.
I'm sorry?
It could be done instead of a shchita.
Yeah, it's not could be done. It has to be done in the Beis Hamikdash for kosher.
No, I'm saying if somebody wants to eat a bird,
yeah,
goat,
yeah, he can't. No, they don't have that option. Only in the Beis Hamikdash.
Only in the Beis Hamikdash.
Only Beis Hamikdash for kosher. You don't have an option to do malika kaya. You can't in the Empire factory in Lancaster. They do not have the option of using their fingers. They must use a knife. They use their fingers. I think it's going to be an avela.
So
these are each purpose. Shchita is for chulin, and you can't do shchita on kachim. And malika is for kachim. You can't do malika on chulin.
So in other words, if it would be a chatas, then it could be eaten.
A behema, you mean?
I mean malika.
Chatas oif, yeah.
Then
it was a chatas oif, and you did it properly. If you didn't do it at night and you didn't do it with the left hand, then it would be mater. While the other hand, treifa, is not something that's matter at all. Treifa is only a problem. It's not a matter.
If an animal that dies on its own, that's a treifa, right? Where
that's a nevela.
That's a nevela.
Nevela is that didn't have shchita at all, right? So if it didn't have malika in the case of kachim, or it didn't have shchita in the case of chulin, and it dies. However it dies, it could die of old age or it gets its head chopped off, then it's an avela. Treifa is something that the animal had a flaw that made it that it wasn't able to live. It had a spot on its lung. When they check afterwards, they're looking for spots on the lungs to see if it's a treifa. If it had like an incurable, not disease, but an incurable wound, internal wound that it was destined to die, that makes it a treifa as opposed to nevela.
So what if the shechita was not improper, so the knife wasn't sharp?
That's an nevela.
It was still an nevela.
Yeah. So Zaktamar, heavy hamoilik. So that teaches you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's the proper. Yeah. Kachir mechutz umoil chulim bein befnim bein mechutz. What about? So we. So it tells you that the moilik is going to be that it's not going to be if it's a treifa. I'm sorry. So it tells you a malika that's puzzle is not going to be mitam begadim beis habliya. That's what the treifa is going to tell you. Kachim bechutz. What about if he does kachim? I'm sorry. It's heavy. These things. If someone is moilek kachim outside of the Beis Hamikdash, right? You have to do it in the Beis Hamikdash. He does the malika for chulim whether it's in the Beis Hamikdash or outside. Since they're not being matir, any isser metam gadim beis habliya. So so we're going to learn out the converse, right? We're saying we see from treifa it says anything treifa is not materis as a isser. Av kosher materis as a isser. So that's excluding. It doesn't include malika lifnim because it is mater isser. So if it's not matam gadim beis habliya. But if you're moilek kachim b'chutz and moilek chulim bein b'fnim bein b'chutz, that is not mater and issa under any circumstances, right? Because you can never do malika on kachim b'chutz, and you can never be moilek chulin at all, since it's never mater issa. Therefore, those things are going to be matam b'gadim beis habliya. That's the other side of the coin from this limit. Tanya idach. We have another brisa that learns this pasuk differently. I might think that shchita of chulin befnim, bekachim, bein befnim, maybe bechutz, mitama beis habliya. I might think, now we're talking about shchita over here, we're not talking about malika, right? Till now, the first limud we were talking about the malika's ayf. Now we're switching to behemoth. I might think that the shchita of chulin lefnim, B'kachim, bein b'fnim, bein b'chutz. I'm sorry, we're not talking about behemoth. We're talking about doing the shechita of a oif. I might think if you shecht chulin lifnim, which you're not allowed to do, b'kachim, bein b'fnim, bein b'chutz. If you shecht kachim, which again you have to do malika, metama beis habliya. So I might say this is also metama beis habliya. Talmud Loima, this is we're starting a new discussion, which this brisa starts with this question. I might say, maybe if you do a shechita where it's inappropriate, where you did chulin lefnim, or you do kachim, you do shechita, which you can never do for kachim. It always means malika. It'll be bein b'fnim bein b'chutz. Metama beis habliya. Maybe that is also going to make it into nevela. That's metama. Talmud Loima nevela. So it says nevela that excludes. So this is really. It's a different version of the previous brisa, which we do try to make the same limud. So tomorrow, nami nevela. No, how do you know this is not nevela? This could also be nevela. You didn't do a proper shechita. The shechita was inapplicable in the circumstance in which you applied it. So maybe that makes it into nevela. Alatamud laima treifa. So we learn out from treifa. Ma treifa shava. So now we make a different drasha. We say ma treifa shava mibifnim kibachutz. Just like a treifa. It's treated the same, whether it's in the Beis Hamikdash or outside. A treifa is always going to be also to eat and puzzle. Av kol shavas b'fnim kivuchutz. So too, we're going to include anything that is treated the same, whether it's b'fnim or b'chutz. Yatsa schitus chulin b'fnim. So that will exclude our original question. If you shecht chulin b'fnim, because if you had shechted chulin b'chutz, that would be obviously a great shchita. It's chulin, it's not kachem. You're supposed to shecht chulin b'chutz. So it's different b'fnim and b'chutz. But kachem beim b'fnim beim b'chutz. So the Gemara asked the opposite question. So like we explained as we were reading it, the first part of that statement makes sense, that we say chulin is different. B'fnim b'chutz, you're supposed to shecht the b'chutz, and b'fnim you're not allowed to shecht. There's an issa to shecht chulin b'fnim. Ela kachem, aydi v'aydi psulininu. You're never allowed to shecht kachem. They're both the same, whether you do a b'fnim or b'chutz. Rava says, no, they're not the same. He says, no, the shchitas chulin b'chutz is effective in a certain sense. Now, it's effective in a counterproductive way for the person who's doing it. That the din is you're not allowed to shecht kachem b'chutz, and if you shecht kachem b'chutz, you're chayiv kares. So saying this shchita is considered that even though he was supposed to do malika for kachem, but if he does shchita of kachem b'chutz, it's going to be b'chayim and kares for doing this, for doing an avoida b'chutz, even though he did shchita. So it's having an effect. This shchita is somewhat effective. So it certainly should be effective that it's not going to become an avela if it has that kayach, that it can be mechayiv and kares. So he says, okay, so you came up with the reason of why the shchita b'chutz should be matter from a din avela, and that's why we have to teach. That's what we need the pasuk. Pnim minalan. How do you know pnim? He said the reason is because, like we just said, since they're not shava, since it turns out that they're not shava, and we said the treifa, we learned that from treifa. Yatsa, we might see from the din of nevela anything which is not shava pnim v'chutz. So now that we've come to the conclusion that the pnim and the chutz are different, L'gabe a shchita, because the shchita b'chutz is mechayiv kares. Obviously, the shchita b'fnim, even though he's not going to have a kosher carbon, but he's not going to be mechayiv for shchita's kachem b'chutz. He didn't do it b'chutz. So therefore, they're not shava pnim b'chutz. Therefore, it's going to be excluded from nevela. Dr. Mari hachi malak kachem b'chutz nami loy. If someone is malak kachem b'chutz, it also should not be mechayiv. It should not make it an avela. Since they're not similar. Malika b'fnim is certainly, that's the ideal. That's what you're supposed to do. So you do malika b'chutz. He also should not be mechayiv for nevela. It should not have a big matam nevela. Amar Rav Shimi Rashi, dav and dav shaloi b'achsher, midav shaloi b'achsher, and dav and dav shaloi b'achsher, midav shechsher. He said, no, that you can't say it's different b'fnim and b'chutz, because the malika b'fnim is being done entirely properly. So that you can't say that they're treated differently. Is that true that you can't compare and say that they're treated as similar because one is being done properly? It has to have that they're only different within their psul. How do we know that if the basar of a behema, if it left the azara, it can know, and it goes on to the mizbeach, that it doesn't come down. Shari yaitza kasher bebama, because a yaitza is allowed to be brought on a bama. It means on a bama is always yaitza. By definition, a bama is something that's not in the Beis Hamikdash. So there's no psul yaitza. So that's a davar b'achsherei. That's the way a bama is supposed to be. So how could you say If you're saying you can't bring a raya from something that's being done properly, but a bama, that's the way you're supposed to bring a bama. Bama is not a b'diavad. The bama is that b'shas the time of the bama, so you're supposed to bring on a bama, and therefore there's no psul yaitza. So no, he has a different pasuk. That it's coming to tell you that a yaitza is alul yerid. It's not because of it's not really coming. Shar yaitza kasher b'bama. Zok the Mishnah. Weiter in this topic of Malika, we're still talking about the topic of Malika that's done, whether it's going to become Nevela, and now we're going to add on. We said that the last Mishnah, we said certain types of psulim are going to make it that the Malika makes it into a Nevela. Certain psulim in the Malika the Malika makes it into Nevela, and other psulim not. Now the Mishnah says, Malak v'nimtzis treifa. What happened if he did Malika on his oif in the Beis HaMikdash? Someone brought a chatas, and he did Malika, and then he opened it up, and they asked the rabbi, the mashgiach, and the mashgiach says, there's a blettel on the, I don't know what the simoni treifa in the bird are, but he found the simoni treifa. He found something wrong inside the bird, and it's a treifa. Even though it's a treifa, this bird couldn't have lived. That doesn't make it that it gets the same thing as a nevela, that it's metama, the tam of a bird. Yehuda disagrees. He said it is metama. The Mishnah itself is going to explain Rameya's reason, and then we're going to have a machlokes, basically a sub machlokes between Rameya and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi essentially agrees with Rabbi Yossi that it's not metama, but he disagrees with him how far that goes. But in any case, why does Rameya say that a treifa does not a malika of a treifa does not metama? Rameya kavachayim im nevelas behema. If the nevela of a behema, shemetamas b'bago v'masan, a behema that became a nevela has a higher standard of tumah. That if someone touches a nevela of a behema, it makes the person tummy. Shitasa mitaras treifasa, and yet if a behema is found to be a treifa, we don't have this question. This question of our mission is only on a oif. If you do malika on a oif and it's found to be a treifa, is it considered to be an avela? But if you shecht a cow and you find it to be a treifa, it does not become an avela. That we're going to see on a brisa, on daf ayin, and we learn that out, and no one disagrees with that. So if shchita of a behema, even if it's a treifa, means that it's not going to be metama, and an avela's behema is more chomer, because it's metama b'mago masa. If you touch it, it makes you tummy. Nevela sa'oif she'ena metama b'mago masa. Nevela of an oif, which it's not metama by touching. You're only metama by your oif by eating. It means the food has to be in the person's mouth in order for him to be metama. Goes down his throat. Metama beis habliya means that it's metama when it goes down his throat. Certainly, it should be easier to be metar the tumah of a oif, which has a lower standard of tumah, and therefore, if you shecht it and you find it to be a treifa, it certainly shouldn't be tumah. And since we found that by a bird, when you shecht the bird and you find to be a treifa, it's not going to be an avela. The shchita makes a kasher la'achila an oif chulin, and it's also matar the treifa from mitumasa, like we just said from the kal v'chaimer from behema af malikase. So to the malika of an oif chulin, of an oif kachim. Shehi mikashrasei b'achila makes a kasher to eat. Right, if you bring a chatas a oif and you shecht it and you do malika on it, it becomes kosher for the kahanim to eat. Tetar treifasi B'dei trumasa, it should certainly be mitar the treifa, that it shouldn't become it should become make a tameh as an avail. So it's a two-step process, right? First, we learn from the shchita of a behema to the shchita of an oif chulin. And then we make a mematzinu. If we find it by the shchita of an oif chulin, we should certainly find by the shchita, by the malika of an oif kachim, that if it's a treifa, it should have become, when you do malika on a treifa oif, it shouldn't become tameh like an avail. So that is Remeya's. That's how Remeya learns his din. That's the source of what Remeya said at the beginning of the Mishnah, that malika of a oif, if it's found to be a treifa, is not mitam. Rabbi Yosi Aimer, Daya kenivelis behema shchitasa mitarasa v'loy malikasa. Rabbi Yosi agrees to the Kal v'chaimer. He says we do learn from a behema that its shchita is mitar the treifa, that it's not going to become an avela, but he disagrees with the mematzinu. He says you can't learn anymore. Daya lava minadin lias kanadi. You want to learn from a Kal v'chaimer that you can't go extend it with a mematzinu to say just like the shchita of an oif chulin is going to be mitar the treifa from its tumasai. So too the malika of a oif kachim should be mitar the treifa from its tumah. No, that's a daya. You can't learn any more than from the original source. The original source was only talking about shchita, so you can't extend it to malika. I'm sorry?
Just a basic question based on your intro this morning. This animal that's a treifa, he's not.
Yeah.
It's kosher. He's allowed to eat it or not?
No, you're not allowed to eat it. We're talking about tumah here.
So he's but if he does eat it, then the machlok is if it's mitame or not. That's what's going on here.
Right. You're saying how could he ever eat it? He's not allowed to eat it.
No, is it one strike or two? Is it one strike or two strikes by meat?
How do you have a tumah b'beis abliya if he's not allowed to eat it?
So you're saying
so
he ate it, but we're not giving him two strikes.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think there's Gemaras that talk about like exactly what point in his throat. I vaguely remember that, and maybe we'll come across it at some point. And maybe there's some way that it could become tameh and beis abliya without eating. I'm not sure. But we're not talking about that. Certainly the shchita or the malika is not going to make it kosher to eat. It's only talking about to be matar from the tumah, that it shouldn't be an avail. And like you said, it's a good question. Why is it relevant? This guy's doing an avera by eating it in the first place. But I guess if he did it b'shaygig, right?
Yeah.
He did it b'shaygig. Does he become tameh or not? It's obviously going to be an afkamina. Right? Does he have to go be matar himself? Does he have to go to the mikvah? Sak to Gemara. For Remeya loydarish daya. How can Remeya disagree with Rabbi Yosi? Rabbi Yosi makes a good point. This is all coming from the shchita of a behema, which is also a treifa, and that's only talking about. There's only shchita by a behema, so you should say daya lava minadin liyas kanad. You can't learn out from a kal v'chaimer anything more than the original limud, than the original circumstances in which the chamadika thing had it. With the chamadika thing over here by an avail of the treifa of a behema was only talking about where there's shchita. In fact, we know that we can see that there's an isser of daya, that kal v'chaimers are limited, that you can only learn out from them what was the limitations of the thing that you're learning it out from. The Tanya. Bidin kal v'chaimer ketza. What's the proper way to learn out from a kal v'chaimer? So you learn out from the pasuk. Vayemer Hashem al Moshe. Let's see the whole pasuk. Vayemer Hashem al Moshe v'avia yorak b'faneh. It's talking about Miriam. That Miriam criticized Moshe Rabbeinu and therefore she became a Metzora. So it says, and Moshe Rabbeinu said that she should be allowed to take away the tzara, so she'd be able to come back into the machna. As the Rishon said to Moshe, "Vavia yorak lefaneh haloi ticholim shivas yamim." Had her father spit in her face, would she not be embarrassed for 7 days? Tisaga shivas yamim chutz lamacha va'achat teyasa. She has to stay out of the machna for 7 days, and then afterwards she could come back. So Zak the Gemara, Kal V'chomer l'shchina Abba Asa Yom. Really, it should have been 14 days because making Kal V'chomer from her father is not the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rebbeinu should be at least twice as much, should be at least 14 days, but the Rebbeinu Shalom limited. Since it was a Kal V'chomer, if the Rebbeinu Shalom said, if a father would spit in her face, she gets 7 days, she should also only get 7 days, even though she really should get more, because the Kal V'chomer should say, the Rebbeinu Shalom should get twice as much, but we say Dayai, and it limits it to 7 days. It's interesting. I like this Taisvis. What kind of Kal V'chomer is this? We're saying that by the Rebbeinu should for sure be 14 days. Now, he said the Rishon made a Kal V'chomer from a father, it should be 7 days. Where would you think that it should be double that? Right? You can't make a Kal V'chomer, even before you say Dayai. What kind of Kal V'chomer? Where does the Kal V'chomer tell you 14 days? So Zak says, Kal V'chomer l'shchina Abba Asa Yom, Ein Rabbeinu Tam, the knock at Abba Asa Yom, Shamir Per Kamapelas, the Shloisha Shutfim Ba'adam, Shagad Baruch Hu Noisam B'Yasara Dvarim, Can I get Aviv V'Imai? That the Rebbeinu Shalom gives 10 things which is opposite both the father and the mother. So there's Shloisha Shutfim Ba'adam, but Taisa seems to be saying that the Rebbeinu Shalom is equal to both the father and the mother. So even though there's 2 Shutfim in the Adam, but the Rebbeinu Shalom is a 50% partner, and each parent is a 25% partner. So we're saying Daya, the Rebbeinu Shalom should have had a double portion. It should have been 14 days. The Rebbeinu Shalom was double the partnership in the person of the father. So if a father is 7 days and he's only a 25% partner, the Rebbeinu Shalom, who's a 50% partner, should have 14 days. Listen, I don't know if you...
Lumdish.
What?
It's lumdish.
And it's... whenever you hear Shloisha Shutfim Ba'adam, I never heard this thing. The Rebbeinu Shalom is, I used to think that 3 equal partners. But that's what it seems to be saying, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is double the parents. He's an equal partner with both parents. Yeah.
Meaning each parent gives 5?
Each parent, it is Asara Dvarim, and each parent gets 5, and the Rebbeinu Shalom gives 10. That's he's saying from what it says here. Asara Dvarim. Yeah. Amr of Yosi Bar Oven. So we have a question. But this is all part of the question. How could Reb Meir disagree with Reb Yosi? Reb Yosi has a good taina that Dailovin and Din Liskanat. Reb Yosi Bar Oven, Reb Meir Kra Ashkach V'Kadosh. Reb Meir is coming from a pasuk. Zois Torah Sabahema V'Oiv. The Torah says, Zois Torah Sabahema V'Oiv Chol Nefesh Chaya Remeset B'Mayim L'Chol Nefesh Asheretz Al Haaretz. The Torah Shavsa Behema Life. The Torah is comparing the Behema to the Oif. The Oif to Behema and the Oif to Behema. The Chayra, they're not the same. Behema Metama B'Maga B'Masa. Oif and Metama B'Maga B'Masa. An Oif, Behema is Metama by touching. And the Oif, like we said, it's only Metama if you eat, if it's Metama Beis Habliya with Nevela. Oif Metama B'Gadam Beis Habliya. Behema and Metama B'Gadam Beis Habliya. And a Behema, if you were to eat a behema nevela without touching it, you would not become tamei. Which we give the example. They give the example if a friend you have a friend who took a piece of nevela tmeya and he stuck it into your mouth with you ever picking it up or you ever touching it, you would not become tamei from that nevela. Now I guess you'd be chayiv for eating nevela, but I'm telling you, if you did it b'shoigig. But the question is, does he become tamei? He wouldn't become tamei. So they're both different. So Behema and Oif are different. So what are we saying? In what way are Behema and Oif Shava? Eloi Melcha. Ma Behema Dava Shemachshira La'achila Metar Trefasa Mitumasa. Av Oif Dava Meshri La'achila Metar Trefasa Mitumasa. It's coming to tell you this din of Reb Meir that just like a Behema, like we said, we're going to see from the Brisa on the next blot, that it will not be mitama. If you do shchita on a behema and it turns out to be a treifa, it's not going to be mitama as an avela. So too by an oif, whatever makes it kosher ba'achila will also make it that it's no longer treifa, that it's no longer an avela if it turns out to be a treifa. Now we already know from Rameir's Kal V'Chomer that shchita is going to be mitar an oif treifa mitumasai. So it must be coming to tell you the second din that even malika is mitar treifasa mitumasa, and that's the source. That's where Rameya disagrees with Rabbi Yossi. And the Mamotzinu that he said in the Mishnah was not his real source. Okay. Now the Gemara moves on to Rabbi Yehuda. And we're just going to get started on Rabbi Yehuda, but it's going to go for quite a while. Rabbi Yehuda, my timer, what is the reason for Rabbi Yehuda who's chaylik? And he says that treifa, oif tameh, that's treifa, I'm sorry, not oif tameh, an oif treifa is going to be mitama beis abliya, even if it's a treifa, even if you do malika, whether you do shchita, either one, it's going to still be tameh tumas nevela. Since it's a treifa, it's not becoming, when you do the malika or you do the shchita, it remains an nevela. It has the din of nevela, and it's going to be tameh. Kra'ashka chadar. She learns it out from a pasuk. Nevelu treifa, the pasuk of the tumma of nevela doesn't just say nevela, it says treifa, right? The pasuk says b'chol nefesh eshtoichol nevela utreifa be'ezach u'bagev v'chibes b'god v'rach zamayim v'tomei ad ha'ara v'toil. Someone eats nevela and treifa, he becomes tameh. Now, Amrav Yehuda, treifa lo menem. What does it have to tell you the din of treifa? In treifa chaya. So this is a little complicated. The pasuk said he's tinus. If a treifa, there's a question: is a treifa able to live for a year, or is a treifa bound to die within a year? So if a treifa is able to live up to a year, hare nevela amura. So we have to see the way Rashi explains this. There's the Rashi. If treifa chai is a Rashi. If a treifa remains alive, so therefore it's only going to become tummy after it dies. Im kein neveli, kvar nevela amura b'pasuk. V'zu neveli shekvar mesa. If it's going to live, so it's only going to become a issue when it dies. So then it's the same thing. It's an nevela anyway when it dies. And im treifa chaya, yeah, im treifa eina chaya, and if a treifa doesn't live, harei bechlal nevela. It's bechlal nevela. What does that mean? So let's see Rashi and them. Treifa eina chaya harei bechlal nevela. Misha nitrafu, when it becomes, as soon as it becomes a treifa, it becomes tameh as soon as it became a treifa, and that tumah doesn't go away. That tarfus is existing in the live animal. So the Tais is asked on that. He says over there, right? There's no such thing as the live animal being tameh. We're saying a treifa is becoming tameh. He's already has a iser treifa from the time, even while it's alive, before it dies or before it was shechted, anything. What does that mean? So Taisus explains that it's talking about if you take a kazayas from a live treifa, that would be metama. So in any case, he said, so this is Rabbi Yehuda's limud. He says there's no reason to say treifa, because whether a treifa lives or a treifa dies, in either case, there was no need to tell it to you. Elo lahevi treifa sheshachta shemetamo. Elamai, what is the Torah telling you treifa? Telling you that if you shech the treifa and then you find that it's a treifa, that it's metama as an avela, and that's Rabbi Yehuda's limud. Okay. You know what? We're going to leave Amalei of Shizbi. We're going to have to review this vart of Rabbi Yehuda's tomorrow next time. So this is going to go back and forth on Rav Shizbi for a while.